Welcome to the Blaffer Courtyard, the official podcast of the Blaffer Art Museum at the University of Houston. This platform is uniquely focused on providing an inclusive discussion space for art lovers to expand their understanding and appreciation for the arts. The Blaffer, founded in 1973 and located on the campus of the University of Houston, endeavors to further the understanding of contemporary art through exhibitions, publications, and public programs. As the gateway between the University of Houston Central Campus and the City of Houston, Blaffer's mission is to create experiences with contemporary art and artists that ignite wonder and curiosity, challenge preconceptions, and expand ways of seeing, thinking, in order to nourish the human spirit and drive empathy, understanding, and engagement with today's world. Thanks so much and enjoy today's show. Welcome to the Blaffer Courtyard, Episode 2. We're recording today from the lovely Coog Radio Studios. The title of this episode is A Way to Mend, which derives its title from the exhibition currently on view at the Blaffer. A Way to Mend, the exhibition was organized by artist curator Doug Welsh, who's joining me in the studio today, along with Blaffer Art Museum education curator Katherine Veneman. So Doug, how's everything going? Thanks for joining us today. How you been?
Thanks for having me. Things are really good. It was a cool morning for the first time in like 5 months, so I'm
Right.
feeling pretty good.
Yeah. Fall has fallen in Houston, so it's like and it's refreshing. And Catherine, you're from the East Coast. I feel like the weather is kind of more your speed. How are you feeling about the weather? How you doing?
Yeah, it's pretty great. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's good to have a teammate from the Blaffer here recording today. Road dog, Katherine Veneman. All right. All right. So before we get into the conversation, I'll give a brief overview of the exhibition, and Katherine will follow up with some questions, and we'll have a great conversation about this special and unique concept, this exhibition, A Way to Mend. Doug Welsh is an artist and writer based in Houston. Doug has curated several exhibitions, most recently Leftovers, Land Space, A Kunsthalle, It's Okay to Feel This, and Orbit. He received a BFA from Bates College and an MFA from the University of Houston, and Doug teaches at Lone Star College, North Harris, and is the co-founder of the Eldon Street Summer Intensive, a program for MFA candidates at the University of Houston. A Way to Mend, the exhibition presents recent work by 19 Gulf Coast artists whose work engages relationships between abstraction and landscape, and whose practices connect art with processes of healing. Accompanied with text commissioned from 5 writers, A Way to Mend studies emotional wayfinding, personal, communal, protection, solitude, spirituality, and transformation. Curated by Houston-based artist writer Doug Welsh, the exhibition is anchored by an enigmatic 1949 painting by Forrest, Bess. A self-taught artist, Bess's paintings were connected to his experiences of visions and his close study of psychology, ginger, and dream worlds. The exhibition features works by Isela Aguirre, Forrest, Bess, Sebastien, Boncy, Crasis, whose members are Andy P. Davis and Anne Lukins, Julie DeVries, Garrett, Griffin, Stephanie Gonzalez, Shangyi Hua, Jonathan Paul Jackson, Terrell James, Emily Peacock, Mitch Pengra, Alexis Pye, Gerardo Rosales, J.R. Roykovich, EricSchnell, Adrienne Simmons, and Benji Styles. The exhibition also includes analytic poetic text by writers Claire Elliott, Sarah Fisher, Liz Gates, Adam Marney, and Emma Thomas. And so now that we have sort of the general overview of the exhibition, Katherine, who's our education curator at Blaffer, she's going to help lead this discussion, and we're really excited to learn more about you, Doug, the exhibition, Way to Mend, and how this project came together.
Thank you.
I think you should have the first word. I mean, just tell us about the exhibition. Tell us more. This sounds like you're working with a lot of different artists in Houston.
Yeah, I honestly almost couldn't even believe that the exhibition happened and the way that it did and the way that it unfolded over several years, which allowed for a lot of contributions from a lot of different people that really just the timing was perfect, and it really was what I had envisioned and what I wanted to kind of say and do with the show. And it did involve a lot of people, and I think because like this was the first show that I've curated at a museum, um, I wanted to include a lot of people in that, and um, and so many artists, especially from this region, deal with questions of healing and mending through their work.
And so, Katherine, I know having been part of a lot of exhibitions at Blaffer, do you have any, I guess, reflections on your experience seeing the exhibition and how those emotions are kind of translated?
It's just great to see an exhibit with so many different perspectives, and so much kind of work and so much variety. So that whenever you walk in, you find something that maybe resonates with you differently that day. So you can kind of keep coming back and seeing more and more. And so your emotions and your responses can change based on what you're singling out that day to focus on, because there's just so much to see.
Yeah, there is so much to see. And I think, I mean, Doug as an MFA student, and then obviously Katherine, you know, having a relationship with Doug for a long time, seeing his work grow as an artist and now as a curator, how is that transition from having an MFA show in the Blaffer to now having, like you said, your first museum show curated in the Blaffer, and then dealing with all these different artists, all these different expectations? Can you kind of speak about that process?
Yeah, I mean, um, as a student and then as like a curator, um, University of Houston and Blaffer has afforded me a lot of incredible opportunities to try a lot of different things, and I felt a lot of trust in that. Um, and I think when I went to graduate school for painting, I was trying to figure out how can I make a practice that is sustainable for my life. I
Mm-hmm.
want to paint the rest of my life. That was my challenge, and I came out of that realizing that there's a lot of barriers and boundaries for people who also want to pursue that.
Mm-hmm.
And so my interest in writing and curating came from like we can lift each other up and we can provide opportunities for each other. And I think especially in a world where like grant money is being cut from the government, and
Right.
it's more and more challenging for these institutions to do the work that they need to do to support artists. I think we can just really think more broadly about how we support each other and how we encourage artists to continue making their work. So that was like the impetus to become involved in this new facet of what I'm now exploring.
Right, right. And you said something, and I thought about King Kesey and the Merry Pranksters, right? The bus further. Not saying that King Kesey had the same goals, but I think creating a community, right? And the bus theoretically being these exhibitions or these art experiences that help artists get past these barriers and some of these walls that you spoke about, that artists have a tendency, or not have a tendency, they will eventually run into them. And how do we as a community kind of move through them and move past them? I feel that was at least kind of what you mentioned, that was a big driving force as far as getting this group together.
It was a That was a big driving force for this show, especially because like it focuses on artists from Houston and from the Gulf Coast, and I think we come up against another layer of like boundaries and assumptions that the
Hmm.
world makes on places like Texas and places like Houston, and the art that is coming out of those areas. Like um, I just want to be a little cog in a wheel that is trying to promote and celebrate art from this region. And so
Right,
that's what this show partly was about, was celebrating the work from this place.
right, right. And to celebrate work from this place, and Katherine as an education curator, um, Could you speak about opportunities to learn about Houston from this exhibition, maybe from an educational, I guess, vantage point or standpoint, and I guess how you would kind of structure that curriculum in a way, in light of what Doug's saying for the exhibition?
Well, there's just so many avenues into the work. You've organized it all by different themes and topics, so there's like endless points of view that you can educationally pick up on. And there's also like a lot of range of processes. So, there's many kind of media that artists explore. There's many kinds of ways of working. And some of it, you can, I think educators and can put themselves into those to develop their lessons, to really immerse themselves in the process. And I think process seems to be like important part of each artist's practice. And as a curator, what do you find was kind of like your approach to uh, working? You're both an artist and a curator. So, what was your approach to your curatorial practice in light of that, the artist?
Well, I did want to include many voices with many different perspectives, and I almost thought of it as like they have different facets that look in on this thing that they share, which is they make their work to heal. And so you talked about process, and like that is, I think, you know, in a group show of a lot of different artists working in very different ways, like it's the making of the work that is the thing that heals. Um, but it's also for, I think, for the viewer that is shared as well. Experiencing art and seeing it in person is a way to mend and heal as well. Like I've had the privilege of having some really transformative experiences of looking at art in my life, and I think a lot of people have. Um, and so that also is kind of what the show is about too.
So transformative experiences and healing, emotional, the kind of that shadow work that you have to do as a human being in this world, right? But also as an artist, a curator, understanding these other artists are sort of going through the same process that you're going through. At least a curator with eyes to see. I wonder if you could speak about selecting the artist, one, and then secondarily selecting those specific works from those specific artists that were kind of in line with with your pathway as a curator for what you wanted Wait a Minute to speak to from all these different points.
Yeah, um I think that because I'm an artist in town, and I have a lot of close friendships with artists, and I that just gives me an insight and a window into um, the way in which many of them are using their practice as a way to heal something, either internally, something like psychological or spiritual, or something outside of themselves, like within the world that we live in, trying to understand how to be better people in the world, how to contend with issues of like climate change. Um, but it was like I had a glimpse into a lot of these artists' studio practices just by being friends with them and showing up to their shows and, you know, getting coffee and looking at their work.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes those artists would recommend other artists to look at. And when it came to selecting specific works for the show, like an example would be Julie DeVries, who has a very prolific painting and drawing practice.
Right.
But there's a specific subset of paintings that really look at the effect of climate change and the devastation of these storms that are getting bigger and bigger, and kind of resilience in the wake of that.
Yeah.
And so those were more kind of the images that I zoomed in on.
Gotcha. And as far as trying to create a through line with, I guess, all these different voices, but there's a commonality. Was that something that you had kind of a vision to sort of pursue, or did you want that to, I guess, more organically? Like, okay, I'll go to Julie's studio. I saw that. Okay, then I'll go to Alexis's studio. Oh, okay, that's connecting with kind of what Julie has, and et cetera, et cetera. Is that or
Yeah, it was definitely that. And And I knew I wanted to include a lot of voices in the show, and that just like invariably, I mean, there's kind of like a tip of each of the icebergs effect that happens when you involve that many people in the show, but that's kind of exactly what I envisioned and wanted. Um, and then, but I definitely wanted to draw those through lines and connections between artists, and there was this period of like really for a year of very active studio visits with a lot of different people that I was kind of building in my head how that was going to work. And then at some point, I put together this connection to Forrest Bess, who was doing what we're doing now, like, you know, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Um, and his work really helped me at a time when I was experiencing kind of similar psychic like trauma, I guess, and using my paintings as a way to deal with that and cope from that. And so there's a very personal connection to him, and it, because of the timing of the show, it worked out that I was able to borrow one of the paintings that he made from the Menil, which was like really humbling and a really cool experience.
Had you known about Forrest Bess before you came out with A Way to Men, or it sounds like Forrest Bess and his experience and his journey through mental health sort of gave you inspiration to, like, someone else is dealing with this, someone else was able to manage it, and someone else was able to use art to, you know, create a sense of healing, to create a way to mend through art.
I learned about Forrest Bess's life and work 3 or 4 years before I started to conceive of this show, and I was working at Posda Butler Gallery, and Hiram and Josh introduced me to his work, and that was when I was just starting graduate school, and that introduction just like really, really helped me in that moment. And then it was like, and he really became one of the biggest influences on my life and my work. And then I started coming up with the idea for the show, and it wasn't until like 8 or 12 months into it that I was like, oh, maybe that facet would work.
Right.
And maybe that would help kind of ground this group of contemporary artists, many of whom are also similarly influenced by Bess.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
Katherine, you're also an artist.
yeah.
Could you speak about the process of painting as a healing process?
I think it definitely is. It's a way of sorting through things and working through things. But what I'm kind of interested in finding out from you, Doug, is to like once you've kind of found these through lines and selected these works, the next big thing is designing the work in the space. So how did you connect the works, or how did you arrange the works? What considerations did you use when you designed the show?
When I was laying out the show and designing it, I had also come up with another like revelation that happened after selecting the artist, after selecting the work. In building the brochure, the catalog for the show, I divided it up into these 7 categories that kind of grouped the artists and the writers. But when I laid out the show, I didn't want to be so bound to that. Like I didn't want to group, you know, each of those things in the space. I wanted to divide them up and arrange them more by formal connections between the works. And so that was my main concern, was just formally which works, like, you know, fit the best.
So in other words, you were drawing visual. You were making decisions based off of visual. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think to the point, once it was visualized, like, can you speak about your impressions on seeing the exhibition physically manifested out in the space? Could you speak about that, from imagining it and, like Katherine said, laying it out, and now it's a real thing? Could you speak about that feeling?
Oh man, it was amazing. Like it had, I mean, this process really did take, 2 or 3 years, and so it had evolved in so many ways. Um, but I loved that it was contained in one space. I loved that the ceilings were low and the lights were kind of spotlit, and there's kind of a warmth and like an intensity um, to it that I really enjoyed. And so many of those choices like came from contributions from many people, from y'all, Tony and Catherine and
Right.
Laura and Skylar and Young Men. Like, I mean, like I learned so much by doing this show.
Yeah.
So.
Does it seem now that it's been activated, it's gone on for a while, and we have a few more weeks left. What of some of your what do you think about it now?
Yeah. How do you feel
And-
after the fact?
I
Not
feel
after the fact. I says now that maybe that final lap is coming up into your horizon. How do you feel about it?
I feel really good. I'm super grateful, super honored. It's been so much fun to work with everyone in the show, and like it's just really fun to think about how many people were involved in that. I'm very proud of it, and I'm sad to see it go eventually, but I think that's a good feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it is a
Yeah.
good feeling. I think for us as as supporters, I know myself, it was great to see. We had early meetings about the design, and they played out. Catherine mentioned, I'm sure you all had plenty of meetings and emails about programming and events, and there's still a few events left. And now, Catherine, I'm sure like that, I guess anxiety of having seen those events play out and having them be successful, I can imagine that there is a sense of relief that's coming up, but also a sense of expectation, like, oh, I can do this, we can do this, and like some of the lack of confidence maybe or the insecurities about putting my voice or putting my work out there and having other people believe in my work and put their energy and effort into it, that can, if I put it out there, it's going to be reciprocated, right? So could you kind of speak about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I really feel that strongly. And I think it's like a uniquely Houston, Gulf Coast, resilient feeling of coming together to face adversity. And um, like, I've just never been one to like wait for permission. And I tell my students that all the time, just like make your own magic. We do that together. And I think this show represents that for me. And what I want to do going forward is to continue to just advocate for artists and the work that they do.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the real work, man. That's what it's all about, as far as next steps for the Way to Mend itself, for Doug Welsh, the artist, the creator. What's sort of on the horizon for you?
Well, I as in my painting practice, I upcoming Adam Marney with F is taking my work to Untitled Art Fair, which will be September 19, 2021.
Yep.
And I'm not sure where I want to take A Way to Mend yet. Um, it could be a thing that travels. It could be a thing that evolves. It could be a thing that just is and was. Like I'm really I'm still present with this in its current state, I think. Yeah.
I got you. Catherine, do you have any?
That was great. We
Yeah.
can't end on a better note.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know the exhibition closes. A Way to Mend exhibition closes on September 27th, and we have an artist talk by Doug's going to lead on September 18th. So we're excited about that.
19th?
September 19th. My apologies. The artist talk with Doug is going to be September 19th. To sort of, so if you haven't had a chance to come by the Blaffer and see A Way to Mend the exhibition, you have a couple weeks left. And again, artist talk to really, hear directly from Doug, kind of piggybacking this conversation, but hopefully some surprises as well. Katherine, do you have any more thoughts? Doug, do you how can people see more of your work or find out more about what's next for you? What's the best way to stay up to date on what you're up to?
My website is douglaswelsh.com, and my Instagram is liferaft, with 2 underscores in the middle of life and raft. And I did also want to plug that there is a performance by Crasis at Blaffer on
The
September
25th.
25th.
Yep.
From 6 to 7:30.
Exactly. Yep.
And it's going to be really, really awesome.
Yeah. Crasis has it's a really surreal, kind of cerebral installation, but I'm sure their performance is going to be equally more so. So and they're I'm excited. I'm excited. Well, yeah. Thanks so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it. As we mentioned, Away to Man is on view through September 27th. Also presently on view is the exhibition Cuidado, which also closes on September 27th, along with Safe Azu's Keet Hagelpa, The Water is Rising, which is on view through December the 20th. Upcoming exhibitions at the Blaffer are Soledad Salame Camouflage, which opens on October 17th. And to find out more about the Blaffer, our upcoming events and exhibitions, please visit us at blafferartmuseum.org or follow us on Instagram at blafferartmuseum. Thanks so much, Doug. Thanks so much, Katherine.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you
you
so
next
much.
time. Take care.
Bye.